Welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. From Hollywood to healing, music as medicine. More music feel better, none other than Mr. Chris Boardman.
Hey there.
Welcome,
Pleasure to be
welcome.
here.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Chris on Book 101 Review. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Sure. I've spent the bulk of my career writing music for film and television and records. Starting in 1974, I'm not a young guy, but worked on major motion pictures from the 70s to the 2000s. Films like The Color Purple, Die Hard, Lethal Weapons, Meet Joe Black, Payback with Mel Gibson. Have my name on over 150 films. Worked with record producers like Quincy Jones and David Foster for many, many years. Released my own albums as part of a group called Wishful Thinking in the 80s, and solo albums beyond that. And so as you can imagine, that kept me very busy. And then when Napster hit around 2000, I shifted my focus to technology because I could tell that the world was going to change. It was not just a business cycle, that the culture was going to change. And that led me to joining a networking group with industry leaders in the technology space. Launched a couple of startups after that. Then I taught college for 6 years. I was a program director at the University of Miami Frost School of Music for their commercial music program. And towards the end of that, my dean asked me to step down, and he erupted in a narcissistic rage that was so terrorizing. To this day, this is 2017, to this day, I believe that I would be dead if he had a weapon. And that was the impetus that pushed me on this journey into music as medicine, because I couldn't find, once I became aware that I was suffering from symptoms of PTSD, nothing I tried seemed to give me any relief. So I decided I better find my own way. And that resulted in intensive study in how the brain reacts to sound. And I ended up developing a intervention that uses music, movement, and breathing to interrupt the fight-flight response, which is triggered when you're anxious or when you're depressed or when you're having a PTSD episode. And I can talk a whole lot more about that in detail, but that's how I got to this place in life where my purpose is to use my skills developed over decades in the film world, guiding people's emotions using music to give them symptomatic relief to anxiety and depression.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Chris. Thank you. And today let's talk about adaptation making career shift. So, what was the defining moment or the Shelburne realization that prompted your career shift?
Well, the major one was Napster in 1999, but my career mirrors the personal computer, because my career started about 1977 when the Apple I was introduced, and as technology grew, it became more disruptive in the music business. And so every time a new development would occur, like a programmable polyphonic synthesizer, for example, a Prophet 5, I had to shift to electronic music, which caused me to reevaluate where I was going to go in life. And that I had several subsequent career changes. And most notably with Napster in 2000, I realized at that moment I had this fabulous career writing custom music for a closed distribution network, which was theatrical films. And I could just see the writing on the wall that my skills would at some point no longer be needed. And that was difficult because I actually had to figure out what was my true core competency. I'd always thought it was making music, but in reality, my core competency was critical thinking and creative problem solving. And when I had that realization that that's who I really am, I could realize I could apply that skill set, that critical thinking and creative problem solving. I could drop that into any industry, any sort of career, and apply those skills that I had developed orchestrating, writing for symphony orchestras, uh, into any, like I say, any industry. And so when I would be forced into making a change or have an opportunity that I wanted to take advantage of, like teaching, I took this job without having any classroom teaching experience. And now I was responsible for 50 graduate and undergraduate students at a major university. And I had to figure out in a heartbeat, how am I going to make this job work? So if I had not gone through these transitions as technology had evolved, I would have failed miserably. And that same skill set enabled me to attack this notion of music and as medicine with the confidence that I would be able to find a solution.
The fear of starting over can be paralyzing, Mr. Chris.
Oh, absolutely. It's terrifying.
How did you navigate the internal resistance and the voice that it's too late, you are not qualified?
Well, there's a term that is popular these days, or at least started when I was teaching, called the imposter syndrome. And in my generation, you would get an opportunity and you could fall on your face and get up and learn from that experience and move forward. In today's world, the stakes are a little higher, so to speak, and there's less opportunity. So there's that fear of failure. And through that evolution of my life, I was able to realize that, I can figure this out if I just give it a try and stay focused and be tenacious enough to get to the end. And what actually prepared me for this was not only those skills that I talked about a second ago, but also the fact that there is no failure or judgment attached to failure. That's all internal. That's what if you fear failing, you will never succeed, because you don't necessarily give yourself the opportunity to learn from that failed experience.
So, how do you reframe your identity from being an expert in your old field becoming a beginner again? And what was that psychological journey like?
Oh man, I think about this all the time, because as a studio musician, you're trained to walk in the door, sit down with a smile on your face, be ready to play when the clock hits the hour, and play the music perfectly, no mistakes. Be pleasant about it, wonderful to work with, and at the end of the session, you smile and you say thank you, and you walk out the door. So that was my training, and what I've fought that consistently, this desire, this need to be perfect, and it dogs me every single day. Because if I'm not perfect at something, or if I don't know it cold, then I feel like I'm doing something wrong. But what I've learned through that process is that it's more important to be present and not hide behind perfection as a way of being able to calm yourself down or to feel comfortable with what you're doing.
What did you have to unlearn from your previous career? Certain habits, expectation, or ways of thinking in order to succeed in your new one?
Uh, well, the biggest for me personally, the biggest challenge is trusting other people. Uh, I've spent the majority of my life sitting in a quiet room with a piece of score paper and a pencil, imagining what a symphony orchestra would sound like in my head. And that's a very solitary, Lone Ranger kind of approach. Now that I'm in a founder slash CEO role, the my I can't take that same, oh, I'll just do it myself. I don't want to talk to anybody. Let me just complete the project. I have to change my focus to say, well, how do I get the best out of my team? How do I make them succeed instead of just being so self, I would say, not self-centered, but self-obsessed, to be able to say, this is what I have to be responsible for everything. So that's the number one thing.
How did you conduct your career R&D to explore new paths without quitting your job? What methods did you use to test the waters before taking the plunge?
Well, to be honest, I've kind of forced into it. It's traditionally been an all or nothing kind of thing. It's not like I have a friend, George Gallo, the writer director. He used to tell me, if you have something to fall back on, you will. And so it's, you have to commit yourself to doing something different, because if you have a job, it takes X number of hours out of your life every day. And it actually prevents you from exploring new opportunities because your focus, your attention, your time is spent doing something else. So it's very, very difficult to prepare for another career without that commitment. Now, of course, financially, you have to survive. You have to put food on the table and have a place to live. And people do that. But for me personally, it was like, oh, well, that's not what I'm doing now is no longer working. I have to go do something else. And I just dive in head first. And I kind of figure it out as I go.
Interesting, Mr. Chris. So, what did your bridge look like? Did you make a clean break, or did you create a strategic transition, or perhaps with freelancing, part-time work, or certifications?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm an artist. And so I'm very in tune with my emotions. And I would just get to a point where I couldn't live with myself. I had to do something different. And so that, coupled with not being taught how to end relationships well, it it was my avenue. My approach was more, I can't do this anymore. I got to go do something else. And I would just cut it off and go off and figure it out.
How do
If
you
that,
identify, Mr. Chris, how do you identify which of your existing skills were portable assets, and how did you spot and find most critical gaps in your new skill set?
um, well, it really goes back to what I was talking about a second ago about doing a deep dive and understanding who you are in the world and what your specific core competencies are. And if you can do that and be brutally honest with yourself, to say, I'm good at this, I'm great at this, I'm not so good at this, I suck at this, or I really want to do this, or I don't want to do this, then you can go down there. I'm sorry, it's kind of late in the day for me. I'm getting a little um, distracted. Could you repeat
No
the
worries
second
at
half of
all.
that question?
No worries at all, Mr. Chris. I'm gonna move to our next question.
Sure.
And what will be your short-term and long-term goals?
My lifetime goals:
Yes, please.
um, live every day to the best of my ability, treat people well, treat people with kindness, and give without expectation. Quincy Jones used to tell me, "I give without expectation. I'm grateful for the result." And it's it's interesting through this transition. My focus is with Soundbridge Health has been to use my skills to help other people. This is not about me. This is about using me to help other people. And it was challenging. I mean, it was not easy to learn about the healthcare industry. It's very complex, very convoluted, lots of laws and regulations and practices, and there's a lot to learn. And so diving into this, um, I would lay in bed awake at night, staring at the ceiling, wondering how in the world am I going to solve this problem? I have no idea what to do. And this would happen after I would spend uh, every waking hour trying to find a solution. If I got stumped, I'd just lie there in bed, and then, as if by magic, somebody would appear in my life who had the answer. It's just the most remarkable thing. And the only thing I can say to that, why that happened, is because I was completely open. I was not fearful per se. I was saying, I'm tied to my purpose. I have to find an answer to this problem to be able to move this project forward. And if you get your ego involved, if it's about making money, or if it's about something that you're not wholly committed to, you're going to prevent the universe, if you will, from coming to help you. If you are transparent and you're open about it and say, I don't know, and you can keep your eyes open, be aware of the world around you, you'll find that there's all sorts of people that would be willing to help you if you actually saw what they had to offer, or if you asked them. So that's the best I can do to answer that sort of question.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. Chris, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be like you?
Well,
Mm.
I don't know if I would wish that on anybody, but it's kind of a cliche to say, live each day like it's your last, because someday it will be. Uh, just realize that you will never find out who you really are and what you're really capable of, and until you make a commitment to go do something. It's not going to come to you. And in that process, when you make that commitment, you have to accept you're going to get beat up along the way. So what happens, I've seen with so many people, that they'll say, I want to go do this. And then they're not committed to it, or they do it for the wrong reasons. If somebody says to me, I want to be a musician because I want to be rich and famous. Well, without fail, they will not succeed, because they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for external validation, which is okay for some people, but it's never worked for me. So if I were to give somebody some advice, in a nutshell, it would be, don't be afraid to fail. You'll never know. If you don't try, you'll never know.
Yes, don't afraid to fail, people, because failure make you perfect in the future. So, Mr. Chris, thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Sure. There's two books and I'm very much interested in culture and cultural anthropology, and why people do what they do. something that I'm very much interested in. And there's two books. One is called Chatter by Ethan Kross, who is a research psychologist at the University of Michigan. And Chatter is a book that describes how to stop self-talk, manage self-talk and rumination. It's life-changing. If you get in your head and you just spin around for hours and hours and hours, this is a great book. It will give you skills to be able to manage that part of your life better. The other one, which I find fascinating coming from the 20th century, where Madison Avenue would say, well, I can get you in front of 150 million people if you buy this ad, but I can't tell you who they are. Now we've evolved into a world where everybody, your ads are served online based on your browser history, right? So that means that you can track and analyze who's looking at what, where they are, who they are, what they like, what they don't like. And there's a sociology professor at University of Pennsylvania named Damon Centola, and he wrote a book called Change: How to Make Big Things Happen. And the thesis of the book, or the book, is about his documentation of how information spreads between individuals, and it's studying it, and then understanding how to change a group of people's opinion or belief about something. And the fascinating thing about this book is, because we're in an age where we can do that sort of tracking of user behavior, he was able to quantify his results of the studies that he did. And and there again, he lays out what you have to do if you have a group of people and you want to change their mind, or if you're on an outsider and you want to change another group's opinion about something or belief system about something. So I highly recommend it. It was hugely impactful to me, and it certainly helped me along my path.
Thank you for that recommended books, Mr. Chris. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my Abstract Essay is already in fifth season, Abstract Poetry in second season, and my Book 101 review in fifth season too, Comedy 101 in second season, and my Food 101 in fifth season as well, Geography 101 fourth season, and my Baby Podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in fourth season, as well as my Movie 101 review and Music 101 and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its second season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So finally, Mr. Chris, beyond resilience or courage, what is the most underrated quality a person needs to successfully navigate a career?
Hmm, that's an interesting question. Belief in themselves. Invest in themselves. If you don't invest in yourself and believe that you can succeed, you'll never get there. And there's lots of tools to be able to help build that self-confidence. Number one is having the courage to fail.
The courage, well, indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Chris. And can you please invite our listeners to support your business, your advocacy, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Well, SoundBridge Health is in the United States. We have the startup. SoundBridge Health is a reimbursable intervention that treats anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And we're going to be launching after the first of the year. And you can find out more at www.soundbridgehealth.com.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Chris Boardman, because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering business or advocacy to come. So, Mr. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you